Some excellent work again last week. Really impressed. Now we're nearly at the end. We've only really got 2 video lessons left on Elizabeth, this week's and next week's, and then you're done with the Elizabeth course and it's summer holidays, so very nearly there. Okay, so this week we're looking at exploration. So why and how did people come to explore the world in Elizabethan England? And there are some stretch questions there for you to have a go at. So exploration is travelling overseas. England needed new trading ports, and the printing press was invented during this period and allowed for new maps. So there's 3 key things just to know about exploration. So what led Elizabethans to explore? So there was the expanding trade, because remember, trade is a massive source of income. So it was expanding rapidly as the New World, and when we say the New World is the Americas. It began to open up and loads more opportunities to trade and lots more different materials and things to trade with. Another key thing is adventure. So some young Elizabethan men, especially nobility, went on voyages of discovery and hope and adventure and making their fortunes and writing about it. What made exploration more possible in this period is the invention of some new technology. So we've already said the printing press to print maps, navigation. So what was invented in this period is quadrants and astroglobes. So it made it more accurate to know where they were going, rather than just sailing the ship and not knowing where they're going or where they're going to end up. These new technologies made it more accurate. They used the position of the stars, and it was very useful for longer voyages. Maps. Maps were also made with greater accuracy. So the Mercator map was developed in 1569. They were much more precise, so it was more realistic. It was consistent. It was the first time, I think, that the map of the world wasn't in the globe shape, it was being laid out flat. This is an example of a Mercator map, so you can see it's much more like a map we'd see today. And what he did was he had the accurate positions, and he used the measurements and lines to help sailors, and he wrote about it here, help sailors find their way around the globe. We've got new technology, so ship design. It made longer journeys possible. So the galleons were developed in the 16th century. This is this kind of ship. A lot larger, so more supplies could be on board, so you can go on longer journeys. So that's why it was easier to go to places like the New World, because longer journeys were made more possible through the development of the galleon. And this is just a little image that sums up those 3 things. Okay, so one of the key people who went on these voyages of discovery was Sir Francis Drake, who we've heard of before, to do with, well, he's done a lot, hasn't he? With the Spanish ships, and Angra and Phillip, and in the Armada. So he was the first Englishman to sail all the way around the world. We already know he stole lots of jewels, and he claimed a lot of new lands. So, quick video.
In this pod, we'll consider exploration in Elizabethan England and the voyages of discovery.
During Elizabeth's reign, many people became interested in exploring the globe. This was partly due to trade. The war against Spain, the trouble in the Netherlands, and the collapse of the woolen cloth trade all led to merchants seeking new trade routes and locations for profit. Voyages of discovery financed by the Queen or other wealthy nobles could result in lots of treasure or money being brought back. As a result, though they were dangerous, they were very popular among the wealthy.
Ship design was improved. Bigger sails were added to enable ships to move faster. Firepower was increased, and stability was also improved. This encouraged people to travel further across the globe. The idea of adventure, exploring unknown places and gaining wealth and status was highly appealing to young men. New technology such as quadrants, which were instruments used for celestial navigation, and astrolabes, which helped to calculate latitude, made journeying to new places safer. Standardized maps also helped with navigation. Finally, the triangular slave trade was established. This involved the trading of goods to Africa in exchange for people who would work as slaves. The slaves would be taken to America and the Caribbean to be sold. Finally, the money generated from these sales would be used to purchase cargo, such as rum and sugar, to take back to England. It was pioneered by John Hawkins and provided a lucrative opportunity. Many others opted to run the same trade route.
The most famous voyage of discovery was led by Sir Francis Drake, the privateer. Remember, a privateer was an authorized mercenary, an armed person legally allowed to capture merchant shipping. Between 1577 and 1580, he journeyed across the whole of the globe. This is known as circumnavigation. The journey was motivated by Drake's deep dislike of the Spanish, who had killed most of his men in an earlier voyage. He planned to sail to attack Spanish territories in the Pacific, as the defense of these areas was weaker. Drake was also a Puritan and saw this voyage as a chance to weaken Catholic powers. Finally, the capture of gold, treasures, and land would increase England's power and provide an opportunity to establish new trade routes.
When Drake first set sail in December 1577, he left with 5 ships and a crew of 164 sailors. Initially, they sailed towards and around Brazil, heading to Port St. Julian in Patagonia, which is modern-day Argentina. Here there was trouble on the mainland amongst the crew. Dissatisfaction among the crew was so high that Drake tried his friend Thomas Doughty for mutiny and killed him. He set fire to 2 of his own ships and proceeded with a reduced crew.
In September 1578, they reached the Pacific, but here one of the ships sank and the other was lost. It would eventually make its way back to England. Drake was left with just 1 ship and low supplies. It was at this point that he made a series of attacks upon Spanish settlements and gained a lot of wealth.
At this point, Drake was faced with a decision. Should he return back the way he came and be attacked by Spanish fleets? Or should he push forward into the unknown and travel around North America? He opted to push forward, and sometime later, he and his remaining 55 crewmen landed in California. They landed in California and named it Nova Albion, meaning New England. The local people, or natives as they were then known, thought that Drake was a god and gifted him with tobacco. Drake continued his journey from Nova Albion back towards England, making many lucrative spice trading deals along the way. He arrived back in England in September 1580.
The voyage increased England's reputation on the sea. It gained new territory for England, as well as establishing new trade agreements. This led to more agreements with China, West Africa, and India. England's government began to view the Navy in a new light and tasked it with more defence responsibilities. Ultimately, Drake's voyages further deteriorated English relations with Spain. The knighting of Drake on the deck of the Golden Hind, his last remaining ship, was seen as a direct challenge to Spain and made war inevitable.
Okay, so as you can see, voyages of discovery are good and exciting and is that adventure that people want, although they are also very dangerous. So if you were asked to go on a voyage of discovery, sometimes you had to be convinced to go because of the conditions and because of the danger that you're going to be faced with. So I don't know if you want to pause the video now, I'll come back to it later, but here's some questions from that video for you to answer. Okay, so quickly to recap, so why did Drake circumnavigate the globe? His main purpose was to raise Spanish colonies, so he didn't go out to say, I am going to sail around the world. It was revenge on the Spanish, which is his main goal. Why is it significant then? What did circumnavigating the globe do for England and for Drake and for Elizabeth? So England was now seen as a seafaring nation. it was a great boost to English morale that someone had been able to do this, and that the English had some of the finest sailors in the world. It encouraged other people to go on explorations, especially to the Americas, and so other sailors managed to do that. Nova Albion, so in June 1579, Drake landed in a bay that we know as California, San Francisco. The local Native Americans treated the English with great hospitality, so they were really nice to them, and as the video said, they thought it was like a godlike figure. He named the region Nova Albion and declared it Elizabeth I to be its sovereign, so its queen. Elizabeth gave her explorers the right to claim any land that no other Christian leader had already claimed, so there was much more land up for grabs in America. One thing to point out here is the rights of the Native Americans who were already living on that land wasn't even considered, but we look at this a little bit more next lesson when we look at Virginia. It encouraged more colonies and investors to establish colonies in more the New World is the biggest one. Okay, so your task this week is to design a poster encouraging the people of England to explore. So you need to include why they should explore, what technology they will use, where they might go, and the successes of Drake as an example to encourage them to explore. So go back in the video, look at the slides, watch the short video again, and your task this week is to design a poster. So if you can take pictures and send them to me, that'd be brilliant. If you do it on paper and you want to send it into school or bring it into school when we're back, that'd be good. And then I might be able to do a display if they're really good. Good luck.